Syntax, a term derived from Greek words meaning together and arranging, refers to the way words and smaller units of meanings or more forms are organized to form phrases, clauses, and sentences. It deals with how these structures interact with communication from like speech, sign language, or writing. Syntax includes the subconscious rules we use to create sentences correctly without thinking. For example, native English speaker know instinctively that I will be going to the store is correct, while a going 2 minutes I be view in store will store the is not. There are two types of syntax: descriptive syntax, where linguists study how people actually use the language, and perspective syntax, where rules are given about how language will be used. Some approaches to syntax focus on description, while others are used to mathematical models to explain sentence structures. A key model, generative grammar, suggests that the human brain is wired to process language in specific ways, explaining why children can learn language so easily. This model also hints that certain animals might have basic compositional abilities related to language processing. Finally, people don't always follow strict grammar rules in everyday communication, as seen in text or tweets. Linguists often study these informal forms of communication as well.
Hello everyone, as my partner Lisa has explained the definition of syntax and its importance, now I'm Nabila Dwi Permatasari and I will discuss about syntactic construction, which has two types. Types of syntactic structures and types of sentences and clauses. Before diving deeper, let's clarify what syntactic construction is. So, syntactic construction refers to how sentences are formed in the language. It involves rules and structures that combine words into meaningful sentences, which are essential for clear communication. Now, let's explore the first type, which is types of syntactic structures. As always, structure and sentences are interconnected, meaning a well-structured sentence is correct. Next, I want to ensure that you understand about sentences. Language consists of various components, and one key component is constituents. Constituents is the building blocks of sentences. We combine these constituents according to grammatical rules to express complete ideas. There are four key components of sentences. The first is the subject. The subject is the person, place, thing, or idea the sentence is about. It tells us who or what is performing the action. For example, the cat sleeps. The cat is the subject. The second is the predicate. The predicate contains the verb and provides information about the subject, describing what the subject is doing. For example, the cat sleeps. Sleeps is the predicate. The third is arguments. Arguments are necessary parts of a predicate that complete its meaning. They give additional information to understand the action or state. For example, the student read a book. The student is the subject argument, and a book completes the meaning of read. Next is adjuncts. Adjuncts are optional parts of a sentence that add extra information but are not essential for understanding. They can describe when, where, how, or why something happens. For example, the student read a book in the library yesterday. In the library and yesterday are adjuncts. Now I will discuss the second type, which is types of sentences and clauses. In this material, we divide it into two types. Also, the first type is types of sentences based on structure. And the second is types of sentences based on meaning or functions. I will discuss it one by one. And now I will talk about types of sentences based on structure. There are Four types of sentences. The first is simple sentence. This type of sentence has just one subject and one action or predicate. For example, the dog ran away. The second is compound sentence. The sentence combines two simple sentences using words like and, but, or. You can also use punctuation like a comma instead of the conjunction. For example, the dog ran away and the cat stayed home. The third is complex sentence. The sentence has one simple sentence and one or more extra parts or dependent clauses that can't stand alone. For example, the dog ran away because it was scared. The last is compound complex sentence. The sentence has two or more simple sentences and at least one extra part or dependent clause. For example, the dog ran away because it was scared and the cat stayed home. Alright, let's continue to the next material, which is types of sentences based on meaning or functions. The first is declarative sentences. The function of these sentences make a statement or express an opinion. They end with a period. For example, the sky is blue. The second is interrogative sentences. The function of these sentences asks a question and end with a question mark. For example, what time is it? The third is imperative sentences. The function of these sentences give a command or request. They can end with a period or an exclamation mark. For example, please close the door or close the door. The last is exclamatory sentences. The function of the sentences express strong emotions or feelings. They end with an exclamation mark. For example, what a beautiful day. Now we will discuss about passive and active voice. Active and passive voice show how the subject of a sentence connects to the action or verb. Active voice, the subject does the action. For example, Mark hit the ball. It means Mark is doing the action of hitting. Passive voice, the action is done the subject. For example, the ball was hit by Mark. It means the ball receives the action. In passive sentences, we add by and a helping verb like was. But by isn't always needed. For example, the computer was purchased yesterday is passive, even though by is not used. The active form would be I purchased the computer yesterday. In conclusion, syntactic construction is essential for understanding how sentences are formed. We explored two key areas. The first, syntactic structures. This area explains how subjects, predicates, arguments, and adjuncts work together to create meaning in a sentence. And the second is types of sentences and clauses. Sentences can be classified by structure, simple, compound, complex, and by function, declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. Mastering these concepts improves both sentence clarity and communication.
Hi, I'm Farhan Yasmin. Now I will explain the material about phrase. First of all, phrases are divided into three phrases, namely noun phrase, verb phrase, and other type of phrase. A phrase is a constituent of a clause named based on its main elements, such as a noun, verb, adjective, adverb, or prepositions. Phrases can consist of one word or multiple words. For example, in the sentence, Jack went to the store. Jack is a noun phrase and went to the store is a verb phrase. A phrase can also contain other phrases within it. The head of a phrase is the word that determines the syntactic or phrasal category of that phrase, whether it functions as a noun, verb, or prepositional. If a phrase consists of one word, that word is the head. In multi-word phrases, the head carries the central meaning. For example, in the noun phrase, the bird, it is clear that bird is the head of the phrase. However, in the noun phrase, the title of the new movie, there are two nouns, title and movie, because the phrase is about the title of the movie and not about the movie itself. So, the head of the phrase is title. Part of a phrase that already had are dependents, which can be further classified as specifiers or complements. A specifier makes the meaning of the head more precise. Then, complements provide further information about the head. Next, noun phrase. A noun phrase is a group of words that functions like a noun in a sentence. It can consist of just a single noun or pronoun or can be expanded with modifiers like adjective or determiners, e.g., the, three. Noun phrases have three different roles in a sentence, namely subject, direct object, and indirect object. Now, let's break down each example. 1. Mary ate the hamburger. Mary is subject, ate the hamburger is direct object. 2. The girl went into the house. The girl is subject, went into the house, it's indirect object. And last 3, he gave the card to me. He is subject, gave the card, it's direct object, and to me, it's indirect object. A noun phrase can be more than just a noun. It can also include words that describe or modify the noun, such as adjective, adjective phrases, and determiners. Determiners are words that help define or limit what the noun is referring to. In English, determiners include articles, demonstrative, possessive, and interrogative. And they always come before the noun. Next, verb phrase. A verb phrase tells you something about the subject. It includes a verb and can include an auxiliary verb, direct or indirect object, and modifiers. In English, every sentence has two main parts, a noun phrase and a verb phrase. A noun phrase is the subject, who or what the sentence is about, and the verb phrase tells what the subject does. Some verbs can stand alone, like in fish, swim. Here, swim is the verb phrase by itself. Other verbs need a noun to complete the meaning, like in Mary ate the hamburger. Here, ate the hamburger is the verb phrase, and it includes both a verb, ate, and a noun phrase, the hamburger. So, verb phrase can be just a verb or a verb with a noun. Next, other type of phrases. There are three types of phrases. 1. Adjective phrase. It's headed by an adjective that might also include an adjective modifier, an element that adds a property to another lexical item. Adjective phrases modify nouns. 2. Adverb phrases are headed by an adverb and might also include other adverbs and an adjective phrase or presence. Adverb phrases modify verbs in the following ways. 1. Frequency. For example, they come every day. 2. Duration. For example, the students have been coming for the past 5 days. 3. Times. For example, Tim will be here at 3 o'clock. And 4. Manner. For example, you should do it this way. And the last 5. Purpose. For example, Christopher brought his report card home to show it to his father. And 3. Prepositional phrase is a phrase headed by a preposition. It can function to modify a noun phrase or a verb phrase. For example, the farmer from Loa is going into the store. From Loa describes the farmer. Into the store tells where the farmer went. In short, this presses on extra information to sentences, telling us more about nouns, verb, or location. That's enough about phrases. Let's move on to the next material.
Right now, please imagine a pempek. Yeah, the traditional fish cake dish from South Sumatra, Indonesia. It's made by the fresh fish, the tapioca flour, and eggs. No. I don't want you guys to feel hungry anymore, but I just want you guys to know that the ingredients I mentioned before can be called as constituents. Just like in food, guys, everything has its own constituent. This applies to sentences as well. Do you want to know more about it? Alright, let's deep dive into it. By definition, a constituent of a sentence is a group of words that function together as a unit. Constituents can be noun phrases, verb phrases, prepositional phrases, or adjective phrases. We can think of a sentence as a made up of small meaningful units, like words for instance. These units combine to make larger units, and then these larger units combine into make even bigger ones until we have the entire sentence as the largest constituent. Let's see the example. Dear student, we look at a very beautiful painting. Each word has meaning and a specific function in the sentence. To determine whether a group of words is a constituent or not, we can apply a process called grouping. Let's look at some groupings in here. The first one, art student. Then, beautiful painting. Very beautiful painting. Add a very beautiful painting. And the other groupings do not have a coherent meaning or function relative to the entire sentence. For example, the art, a very, we'll look at a very. These groups are not constituents because they do not function as a meaningful units in the sentence. You might think, why is a very beautiful painting a constituent, but at a very is not? The segment a very beautiful painting makes sense on its own and has the meaning of the sentence. We can do the task besides do the grouping by asking the question, what do students look at? And the answer could be a very beautiful painting, right? However, there's no question we can ask that would result in the answer at a very. This is because at a very has no meaning on its own and does not form a proper group relevant to the sentence. The next one, we're going to talk about labeling the constituent. Guys, remember about the sentence that we discussed before? The student will look at a very beautiful painting. And let's do the labeling for finding the constituent. So for the first one, we have the as our determiner that defines a specific art student. Then we have art as an adjective that describes the kind of student, in this case, of course, an art student. Then the student as a noun, the subject of the sentence, and will as the auxiliary verb that indicates the future tense of the action. Then we have look as a verb, the main action performed by the subject. And we have at as the preposition shows the relationship between the verb and the object of the preposition, painting. And then a as a determiner introduces the noun painting. And then we have very as an adverb that modifies the adjective beautiful to intensify the description. We have also the adjective beautiful describes the painting, and then the painting that has a role as a noun. as the object of the preposition at. Alright, the next one, we're going to talk about lexicon. A lexicon for a language is like a detailed list of all the building blocks, or we call it morphemes, used to create words. Think of a morphemes as the smallest units of meaning, such as prefixes, suffixes, or root words. A dictionary usually lists complete words, but a lexicon goes deeper by breaking down and describing the morphemes that form those words. Then, if the morpheme is a root, the lexicon also tells us its lexical category, like whether it's a noun, verb, etc., and any specific rule for its usage. For example, it might tell us whether a verb is transitive, mean it needs a direct object, or intransitive, it doesn't need a direct object. Right? This is the end of my explanation. Let us see the furthermore explanation by my friend. I want to say thank you very much and see you in the next occasion. Bye!
Previously, we have explained about lexical categories. There are nouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, pronouns, determiners, and adposition. There are a couple types of phrases, such as noun phrases, verb phrases, prepositional phrases, adverb phrases, and adjective phrases. In this video, I will exclusively discuss only three types of phrases, that is noun phrases, verb phrases, and prepositional phrases. But before we get into the examples of those phrases, I believe it's best if we understand the structural aspect of those phrases, so that we do not just decide and assume this phrase is a noun phrase and this phrase is a verb phrase blindly. This is the phrase structure in syntax. We have S equals NP VP, which stands for a sentence must consist of a noun phrase and a verb phrase. That's what we are going to discuss in this part of the video. Now, a noun phrase. A noun phrase minimally consists of just a noun. Now, please note that everything in the parentheses is optional. So, for example, in the noun phrase, you could just have the noun and that counts as a noun phrase. So, if you would just say chair, maybe a house, or maybe a window, that counts as a noun phrase. But you can make it longer by such as adding a determiner such as the, and adding an adjective such as large or maybe beautiful, and the noun might be house, so that it ends up so that the noun phrase sounds like the beautiful house. Now, moving on to the next phrase, that is the prepositional phrase, which consists of a preposition and a noun phrase. Just like, for example, please note what I said before, that the noun phrase can be just a noun. So a prepositional phrase can be like by the corner, or maybe in the house. That counts as a prepositional phrase. And then we have verb phrase, which minimally consists of just a verb, but you can add a noun phrase, a prepositional phrase, and an adverb. So if you find a sentence and it only has one basic verb such as swim, look, read, and etc., that counts as a verb phrase. And lastly, we have adjective phrase, which minimally consists just an adjective, but you can also add an adverb. Oh yeah, and there's one thing I forgot to mention. The adverb in the verb phrase is allowed to come before the verb that is allowed in English. Now let's move on to the example. Okay, so behind me we have a very good example. A sentence must contain a noun phrase and a verb phrase. So let's decide which is the noun phrase and the verb phrase. A noun phrase minimally consists of just a noun or a determiner, an adjective, a noun, and a prepositional verb. Here, we know that this part of the sentence, the art student, is a noun phrase. Why? Because of the determiner and the adjective art and the noun student. We will discuss this in the form of a tree diagram later in this part of the video. So, we know that this part of the sentence is a noun phrase. Some linguists believe that will is part of the verb phrase. But some linguists also believe that will is a standalone, that it's one of the main units of a sentence. We'll get to that later in this video. Until the end, this part is a verb phrase. Now let's look at the structure. A verb phrase minimally consists of just a verb, or we can add a noun phrase, a prepositional phrase, and an adverb. So we have the verb, we look, and we have the prepositional phrase. We have the prepositional phrase at a very beautiful painting. This is a prepositional phrase, but a very beautiful painting also counts as a noun phrase. That's what I mean. So this one sentence contains three different phrases, one being the noun phrase, that is the art student. The other one, we look at a very beautiful painting, that is the verb phrase, and a noun phrase, and also a noun phrase inside a verb phrase, a very beautiful painting. Behind me is the tree diagram from the previous example. The art student will look at a very beautiful painting. Now the first thing I want to point out is this auxiliary verb, will. Now, for some linguists, they believe that the auxiliary verb is directly connected to the sentence. Therefore, it should be like this. But some other linguists also believe that the auxiliary verb is not directly connected to the sentence. Rather, it's connected to the verb phrase. In contrast, it should look like this. See? Verb phrase auxiliary, verb phrase verb. That's the whole idea. I believe that this is the end of the video. I hope that after we have discussed about the definition of syntax, syntactic constructions, constituents and phrases, I hope that all of you might have a better understanding about what is syntax and how it works. That's all from us. Thank you for watching.